right, guys, we got 8 o'clock. Let's stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Jenny David.
Here.
Roger Mayhew.
Yes.
Charles Wiltie.
Here.
Brenda Simmons.
Here.
Craig Scott.
Here.
Item 2, any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to add an addition to the agenda. Emergency Manager Coordinator Mike Bowers regarding the public alerting grant.
Would you like that under N?
Yes, please.
Any other additions or corrections?
The second closed session for consideration legal opinion from the attorney. We can spell out the MCL at that time.
You want that underneath closed session?
Yes, in addition to the other
So
one we
like
already have.
7B?
Yes,
So that'll just be an add-on to the closed session.
yes.
Okay. Any other additions or corrections? Item 3, public comment. Any public comment? There's rules that apply for public comment. Hi, Mr. Brook. You know the rules? Public comment is 3
Yes, I'm
minutes.
very familiar with the rules.
This first public comment is for agenda items only. Hang on, let me get my stopwatch. Just one.
It's not gonna take that long.
No,
No, I won't be 3 minutes.
I know, I gotta find it. Oh, it's on here. Fuck. Nice to see you again, sir.
Thank you.
You have the floor.
Please read the rules.
Rules,
Please read the rules.
where are they? Do you have a copy of them?
I can bring it up on your iPad.
I have the committee of the whole up here today. And those rules are not on here.
Maybe that really quick, I'll find it within 30 seconds.
Oops, let me go back.
Meaning over here.
Typically I bring them with me.
Yeah. Let's see.
We should be able to recite those. State your name for the
There was a
record.
copy that was in your drawer or up there. Well, you gotta start. State your name.
I did. State your name, 3 minutes, be going to the chairperson when speaking. What's the other ones?
Address the chairman.
She said that.
Oh. I wasn't.
Go. 633.
Holy smokes.
Oh, it's just
That's
that.
not the. 633 rules for public comment at meetings. A, individuals must identify themselves. B, individuals shall stand behind the podium when speaking. We'll have you sit in the chair today. C, individuals will be allowed 3 minutes to speak unless the chairperson of the board grants more time for comment. D, groups will be encouraged to designate 1 or more persons to speak on their behalf. Such designation of individuals will allow an orderly and efficient manner of handling meeting business. E, speak with the speakers will address the chairperson of the Board of Commissioners, not the audience. F, speakers must follow the direction of the chairperson when speaking. And G, a speaker addressing the public body may be stopped from continued speaking if the speech is irrelevant or repetitious, disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting.
Mark Serbrook, West Branch Township.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm here to speak on behalf of county administrators. Pending contract. I think that Tim's done a fantastic job for this county. I think the smartest thing this county ever did was hire a county administrator. As most of you know, probably not the audience, but everybody on this board. I was an employee of this county for 35 plus years. And during my tenure, we did not have a county administrator and we needed one, quite frankly. I think we're very lucky to have Tim with his background and his expertise. And I think he's been a great asset to the citizens as well as the board of Ogemaw County.
Thank you.
I told you it would
Nice
be
to
three-
see you again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other public comment in the room? Come on up, sir.
David Ryan, Mills Township Supervisor.
Go ahead.
Long time ago, when the commissioners took on the project for High Banks, that was kind of more of a marriage. Wasn't just like you weren't going together. That property was attached to you for a long time, forever. The idea of getting rid of it, I think, is terrible. That property brings in a lot of people. You're committed to it. I don't think you should have tried to put that liability on the township. I think that you guys did wrong by doing that. You made a lot of people mad at us, the township board, because we won't take over your liability. I mean, it's yours. It brings in people to the community. We didn't make a commitment to it, but I've helped you to keep it for years. Volunteers have cleaned it, we painted it, fixed boards. I've got boards being cut right now to go in there. The guy at the sawmill in Skidway Lake there, Tom Angel, is cutting boards for me. So, I mean, if you want to get rid of liability, you have an archery range. One of you guys could go there and shoot yourself with a bow. I mean, seriously. It's part of our community. So anyways,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
April Mason, Mills Township resident, Ogemaw County resident, taxpayer. I'm here to address the high banks also. I do not feel it is yours. I feel it is ours. It belongs to the people. People of Ogemaw County. I feel you're turning your backs on your people. I feel you should not sell this. This has been a historic place, scenic view for many travelers, vacationers, year after year, families. This spot means a lot to people in our area. We want to keep it. As far as liability, I don't believe this board even realized they owned it until recently. Then my point is, how much money have you spent on this property in the last 30 years? And I don't think that dollar amounts very much. So I don't think it's costing you much. The maintenance has been done volunteer, as Mr. Ryan said, and I think you're doing a great disservice to try to sell this property and turning your backs on your people.
Thank you.
You.
Any other public comment? Come on up. Have a seat. Your name, please?
Janice Goldup owns Troll Landing Campground and Canoe Livery. Haven't done this in years, so I'm gonna shake, but I use that as access to pick up my tubes. I'd like to know why it's being sold, because I was also told the liability. DNR got a hold of me 3 years ago and asked who owned it, because they were trying to find out who owned it. I could go into it more detail, but you guys didn't reach out to me. You only reached out to Mills Township. What about Churchill Township? I believe you guys as a county should be still maintaining it. But like April said, we've had volunteers taking care of it. I would be offered, I talked to Dave about replacing the board there. This is a natural river. You have a lot of committees to go through. You guys didn't reach out to anybody but Mills Township, and I think that's very disappointing. I'm very active on anything from personal to business wise for this natural river to help protect it. So I'd like one of you to reach out to me more. I don't want it sold from both ways because it draws people to this area. You want Ogemaw County to grow? Do not get rid of this. Because someone's gonna do something that we don't want.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Come on up.
Sue Boom, Mills Township, N or M? M, boom, boom. Yes, the high bank should stay. I'm not gonna repeat what they said because it's important for visitors. Won't you guys do a little research? Get a grant if a maintenance liability is an issue. And also maybe have the Army Corps of Engineer intervene. If is this a big liability issue? And maybe they can find out the erosion weakness on this high banks. It's important to the community. You know, we're not just financing a certain area, all of Ogemaw County. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
One question.
Ma'am, yep, come on and back up.
Do I need to repeat myself?
Nope. Okay.
I just want to know how much money you guys have spent on liability for this piece and how much money you have put out fund wise to maintain it.
That's some information we'll have to get back to you on. Thank you.
Do you know how long?
That I can't answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Come on up, sir.
I'm Dan Johnson, Mills Township. I drive by the high banks at least twice a day. The amount of vehicles there all summer long are huge. We have 4 townships in our county that reaches out to, not just Mills. The dollars that's made off from the people that goes through there for gas, for oil, for food, for sodas, for fishing gear. It's not just a Mills Township thing. It makes money for all 4 counties or townships. I would like to know what your liability is on it. What's it cost for your liability? We want to sell it. We should know why we're selling it. Is there a reason why?
What we have discussed is actually liability wise, yes, but also it hasn't been maintained. The county has not been maintaining it.
The Mills Township's been mowing it.
Not
The
start.
road commission's been,
Pardon me. Pardon me?
Let's not stop. Let's not start answering questions. This is comment.
Commissioner Scott?
Not question.
It was a quick question I answered.
Oh,
Please.
but I fell back.
Go ahead.
so we can't ask a question.
We don't
Public
have
comment is
to.
public comment.
Commissioner Scott,
That's it.
we don't
Any-
have to, we don't have to interact. It is sometimes if it's a simple question, however, typically it's a question that requires further research and this is time for just public comment.
Okay, is there any way to find out what that? I guess I'll have to find out from somebody else how I can ask this question, I guess, but
Go ahead.
what's the liability? Just flat out, what's the liability of the counties?
I believe that's a similar question to what that lady just asked.
Yeah.
We will look into it. We will get an answer.
All right,
We'll get you that, Dan.
thanks.
Any other public comment?
Yeah.
Come on up, sir.
George Bueller, 3083 Rifle River Trail. I'm right across from High Banks,
Can you spell your last name?
Blue House right across the street. Buhler, Bueller. Bueller. Living there, I see a ton of activity going through that High Banks parking lot, people dropping off canoes, kayaks. So I guess my comment is, you would think if you're selling a piece of property, you'd know what the cost of the asset or liability would be, and it would be public information that you wouldn't have to research. I just question the decision behind selling the property. So that's my only comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Come on up.
Gene Meyer from Mills Township Fire Department. I'd just like to express the fact that we, as a fire department, have responded to several emergency rescue calls, and access at the high banks is something critical to operations to get to people on the river. Because that river is flowing down from there. It's like a starting point in our township for us for access. And it has become a very critical point for us to access to the river. So if that should happen to become private property, someone locks it off, not everybody with private property cooperates with us on access to the river. We have put up signs for the people tubing the river. And unfortunately, when they're tubing, they like to treat themselves with alcohol. Some of them get a little bit lost on the river. And we put the like mile marker signs on the river to help them tell us where they're at. And that has been very successful for rescues on the river. But the high banks is a critical access point for us to maintain access to. So might consider that as far as rescues for the people.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Any public comment on the phone? Item 4, appointments. Dan Hill, Michigan Crosswords Council, Boy Scouts of America related to the high banks. Hi, guys. We need another chair.
If there's one available, if not, I don't mind standing.
We'll get you one.
My name is Greg Sedan. I'm the camp director camping.
She's gonna have to write your name down.
That would be easier.
Oh, perfect.
We brought business cards.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
He likes to be on the other side.
You guys have the floor.
Awesome. Well, first, I'd like to apologize. I thought we were just attending and didn't think it was just an appointment to meet with the board and everything. So may or may not have all our information together, but we wanted to come and see exactly what's going on with High Banks campsite, because a lot of the information we've been receiving at the Boy Scout camp is, a Facebook comment or, coffee talk and, gas pump chat and stuff about, we're going to sell it for $1. We're going to, so figured we'd come and weigh in and see what's going on with the property, firsthand so that we could see how we can move forward, since the property is, I think we calculated approximately we sent 3,000 canoers and kayakers and tubers down from the High Banks area down to our base camp on Greenwood Road, and That might be a bit of a stretch, but it's a lot. well, between canoers, kayakers and tubes. What was the estimate? 6,000 campers throughout the year.
We figure we're attracting, I'm sorry, I'm fiddling with that.
You're okay.
We figure we're attracting between 6,000 and 8,000 people annually to Ogemaw County through our operation. High Banks is pretty critical to our river program for a lot of the reasons that have already been brought up today, but we have 3 basic access points that we use, and in summer operation, I would say High Banks is probably not our number one, but in my definition of summer is June 17 to August 1. The rest of the year, I would say High Banks is easily our number one opportunity. We're probably launching about 40 to 50 trips out of there annually, which comes out to, I don't know, maybe 1,000 people. We're very interested in making sure that this remains available to us. To be honest, I'm not in a position to make an offer to buy it. I'm not in a position to even say if we could conceive buying it. I've got my own levels of bureaucracy and liability and everything, just like anybody else would. We are interested in doing whatever we can to help keep it available for public use. If that's a group of Boy Scouts going up to help fix the steps, if that's sending a team up to help trim some trees or cut the grass or something, we're certainly open to having those conversations. I just can't make any promises one way or the other when it comes to ownership or liability.
I appreciate you coming. This is kind of interesting, I guess. Please, Tim, interact if anything or intervene if there's anything that I say that's not correct. I think that we have been discussing this for about a year now, roughly. And it's kind of interesting of all the false information that has been out there, unfortunately, and has been provided. The one thing that we have said throughout this is whatever happens to this property is that it will maintain verifying that all public access will be available for citizens of Ogemaw County. Unfortunately, we do own this property. We have not been maintaining it. It has been being stained once a year by Mills Township. We have purchased a stain. We did purchase a sign. Beautiful piece of property, as you guys know, but unfortunately, again, it has not been being maintained very well. So we've just been having conversation, which is where this has been. I know a nature preserve, Mr. Serbrook had contacted, again, trying to maintain it the way that it is. We did throw it out there to Mills Township since they have been maintaining it, if this is a piece of property that they were interested in. Again, a lot of false information, which is very sad. These videos are on YouTube or on the Ogemaw County website for individuals to watch versus running with false information. I don't really know where we're at right now with all of this. We have 3 new commissioners. We've been discussing it. We do appreciate you reaching out, I think, to the administrator and having conversations. So do you guys have any questions for these?
Oh, absolutely. Hey, I'm glad you guys came because you're the first group that has come forward with an idea to take care of this. Now, I'll be perfectly frank. I made the comment, sell it. But that was because nobody wanted to take care of it.
Correct.
I sat on the County Parks and Rec Board. I'm the chairman of that. I went to the committee and I says, hey, we found out we own the property. You want to take on this too? And no, nobody wanted to. We're taking care of an RV park and a deer nature park in the north end of the county. It's a full plate for volunteers and everything else. Those things don't cost the county any money because the RV park makes enough money to take care of everything and donations. And there's a 501c3 group helping out the deer park also. So, right now, what we're hearing is some volunteers are taken care of. We don't have any contract with volunteers. We don't know if they're gonna volunteer this week and not next week. We don't know. Now, some people say we have a marriage. Well, I've been married. There's paperwork with that marriage, okay? I don't have a problem being married to a township. Let's have paperwork to say it, though. It's give and take. We don't just give and everybody takes. It's give and take. I'm glad you guys come forward. Commissioner Serbrook, past Commissioner Serbrook, we tried valiantly, looked for conservatories, anything. Yeah, we didn't want to take it away from public use, not at all. But I'm glad you guys come. If you guys had sat down and want to take care of it, maintain it, we'll retain ownership. That's no problem at all.
Oh, we'll talk about it.
Well, we'll talk about it. We'll
talk about it.
But a
Mr. Scott.
cost wise is not a thing. We weren't trying to sell it to make money.
No,
I completely understand that.
We just don't need it.
I respect it and I understand that, and I appreciate the canter. My number one reason for coming here today, and I appreciate Dan for setting this up, is I want to get the straight information.
we appreciate that.
As Dan mentioned, I've heard a lot through the rumor mill. And I appreciate your canter, sir. We're happy to help if it means we can keep this available for everybody.
If you guys did take over ownership, would the public have free access to it?
I would hope so. I will say that I'm not in a position to discuss that really because I have my own canter, but I would certainly advocate for that. I think I'm going to have a hard time taking over ownership of it, frankly.
Some of the facts are, we're about to go into our 59th year of serving youth in
Oh, from all over the country, pretty much, because we've had campers from Texas, California, Illinois, New England and whatnot at our property, and we appreciate the partnerships we have with the local businesses and the local townships and here in West Branch. We also appreciate I lost my train of thought. We also have a section of road we take care of with the Ogemaw County Road Commission. We have partnerships with the Ogemaw Soil District and everything. So if we need to work on a partnership with the Ogemaw Parks and Recreation Department to make sure that that property is well maintained and still available for us and all the public to use, then we're willing to go down that road and, you know, maybe get that marriage contract going. But as far as purchase or whatnot, we've got, like Greg said, we've got our own layers to get through and everything, and our organization has its own things, but we do want to try and maintain the best position possible as outstanding members of Ogemaw County and Mills Township as we have for years.
Because I'm pretty sure that all of us, and I'm going to speak for all of us right now, definitely wants to make sure whatever happens to that property in the future, that all residents have have access to continue doing what they're currently doing.
I would certainly agree with that. And to clarify my statement, I would hope yes, I would advocate yes. I'm just not in a position to say yes or no on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons.
So I understand you don't want the ownership. Do you use high banks now?
Yes, we do.
So could you stay, I mean, it sounds like a status quo situation.
Which means what?
Means. Well, I can't make a call for everybody here,
Correct.
but you know, as I'm using it, it's like, there's not an issue here. If they want to maintain it, and they're already using it, and everybody else is using it, sounds like everybody wins.
I don't think they agreed to maintain. That was part of the conversation.
I'm willing to
don't think
have-
you understood that
Yeah,
correctly.
I'm willing to have that conversation. I would. Between, I'm sure you guys have lawyers as well. I'm sure we'd probably want to put something on paper or something to that effect. But what we can bring to the table more than anything, I think, is labor. We have
Free?
volunteer.
That's fair.
We have a little bit of financial resource that we can spend on these kind of things, but it's really not a lot. But we are more than happy to help do whatever needs to be done to maintain that. We already maintain a large section of river as it is. The gentleman from the fire department mentioned the mile marker signs. I was physically the one driving the post into the grounds on that project. So we're no strangers to helping out the river and the community. I don't think it would be unrealistic for us to take this on as well. If it means it can remain available for public use.
Thank you.
It's also worth pointing out that our business model as it evolves is leaning toward serving more outside groups or non-member groups and whatnot. So there will be, forthcoming more public events and more community outreach and community days and whatnot that are already scheduled on our calendar before this came to our attention. So by us being able to support high banks, we would also be supporting those community events and driving more interest and activity to the river and to Mills Township.
Perfect. Thank you. Commissioner Mayhew? Anything? Were you done? Commissioner Wiltie, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I got a little bit. Thanks for coming today. Appreciate it. Appreciate all you guys showing up today. Very important topic. I think we all are very aware that the high banks is a huge asset to our county. Any asset I feel that we have, really no reason to get rid of that asset. I do understand the maintenance, liability wise, it's under an umbrella, insurance wise isn't going to change that number. What I'm taking from today is that we have an opportunity to have a collaboration, possibly with you guys, continue to get things figured out with Mills Township, maybe form a committee for the high banks committee so that we could get this figured out and the county retains ownership of an asset that we have that brings a lot of money to our area, a lot of our businesses, a lot of our residents use it from out of the county, out of the state. So I think this could be a good start of a collaboration with the county maintaining ownership and getting some people involved to help get a consistent plan in place for maintenance to move forward.
And did you have anything?
I don't, and I do appreciate you reaching out and coming in. I apologize if you were surprised at the forum. That's, we all understood what we were doing here today, so
Do you have a business card you can give Tim?
Yes,
I know you
I
have.
think I have them.
you have mine too.
Perfect.
I think so. And
Dan's got mine.
got yours for sure.
And there's Greg.
And I do have Greg's. Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Cool. Yeah, thank
Anything
you
else?
guys for
We'll
having
be in
us.
contact, I'm sure.
Again.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item 5A, sheriff vehicle purchase. If you want to come on up.
Ryan's a big fan of Bugs Bunny too. Pardon me, excuse me. Seeing where I get my culture.
Anything to add to this topic? You guys have anything?
I don't have anything.
Commissioners have,
We need to do something with it.
commissioners, anything?
Well, I've had discussions with Brenda and we talked about a meeting that we addressed this at. And Brenda said she was looking back at a lot of the YouTubes and stuff like that, minutes, and I dove into it too, and I'm kind of glad I did because a lot of things are going up. The original meeting we talked about was in December of 21, and that was when the prior commission was installed, just before you guys came on board.
They came in 2023, so it would have been 2022, not 21.
No, we had the election in November of 2021.
22. You have it wrong.
It was December of 21 was the meeting.
Okay, so that was a year and a half ago.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the sheriff's office came in and wanted authorization to apply for 4 USDA grants. Okay, that's when the original idea for the corrections car came up. And we gave us authorization. I'm glad Commissioner Serbrook is here. He can enlighten on this too. We had ARPA money, we had allocation money, we had different opportunities to do it. And so it was gonna be the 2 pickup trucks and 2 SUVs, 1 for road patrol, 1 for the jail. And then the pickup for the sheriff's office and the animal control truck. We were gonna apply and a boat.
Right.
And we went ahead and the next meeting authorized that they could apply for the grant. And all the grants, all 4 grants. And I didn't see any place in 22 that we received any grant money, so I don't know that we got it or we didn't. But that's the first meeting that we talked about that vehicle being for corrections, and at that point, so we did later in the year in 22. We did purchase the 2 pickup trucks at separate resolutions. And we took on, and we also purchased 2 Tahoes. And that was a little bit different than the authorization. We authorized 2 Explorers. I know the pickups changed because we couldn't get the availability. I don't know about the other. I couldn't find any minutes, but so we talked about this prior to this commission.
Yes, correct.
So that's why I think some of the information isn't known to everybody. That we already talked about this. So this wasn't just January this year. January this year, through a budget adjustment. Well, the commissary fund is a separate fund, separate from the general fund. So it didn't have, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, it didn't have many line items in it.
And two.
Had two, yeah. So we added another one in. Now, it doesn't take a separate resolution to do this. This is all in the one resolution for the whole budget. Commissary budget, not general budget. So we added in a automobile. So that's what happened this year. In 21, the grant asking for the grant application is the other. So this has been good. Just to say, this has been going on for quite some time. It isn't a flash in the pan, brand new idea or anything else. Now, the method we got to do all this stuff is a little bit hazy, but the idea was already there.
So this December 2021 that you were talking about, is it that we approved to apply for these USDA grants, correct?
Right.
We hadn't at that point in time approved the 4 vehicles.
No, as a matter of fact, if you look,
I'm asking what you read.
no, I'm looking at the YouTube.
Okay.
I mean, we can pull a YouTube up on TV and watch it right now, and it was a consensus. Of course, it was committee as a whole, so it's a consensus. And the consensus was, let's see if we can win the grants. And then at that time, we'll figure out where we're gonna take the monies from. Now, one of the suggestions, and I made the suggestion myself, I said, well, if we're gonna have a vehicle just for corrections, then we can use commissary money to pay for the 45%. What is it?
That's correct.
The USDA pays 55%, we pay 45% matching. So I just suggested we could use commissary funds toward matching funds. Just as we talked about using the ARPA fund to pay for like the animal control truck. ARPA funds would pay the other 45%, which it did. I believe I think we got some of that grant. Do you remember?
I don't either.
Okay. Well, and this is the thing. This is all a big learning curve over the last few years. Okay, the last 3 years is a big learning curve and how all grants work and everything else. Because we don't do business like we did prior to 3 years ago. 3 years ago, we got a county administrator, found out that you got to do business in a different way than we were doing it before. When you want a grant, just like the emergency manager wants a grant, he comes here and he asks, can I apply for a grant? We vote on it. That's our job. When the grant comes in, then we vote to accept the money in. And then decide on what we're going to pay for. And that's just how it all goes. It's just a big learning curve. We're all learning.
Thank you. Commissioner Simmons, do you have anything?
No, he said it all.
Commissioner Mayhew?
Well, then, let me.
Hold on, Commissioner Wiltie.
Same stance as last week. I supported this. I've talked to the sheriff a number of times about it. We're not intentional. We need to learn from this so these things don't happen again. But I feel that we need to purchase this vehicle.
Commissioner Scott?
I'm at the same point. I just want to ask the three of you voted not to buy the car.
Correct.
If any of this helps, will you tell me if it helped? Understand the process, understand when it was brought up, why Commissioner Wiltse and I are in favor of buying it.
I don't think it
It's
clarified.
not general fund money, it's commissary money. That's separate than the general fund. We're not going in debt because we're spending general fund money. It's commissary money.
Understandable. It didn't clarify anything for me.
Okay,
I mean, because we purchased the 4 vehicles, all you basically said is back in December of 2021, we talked about a grant to help offset the cost of 4 vehicles. We have the 4 vehicles.
we
So it
we
didn't,
did take in
correct,
2 in August.
correct. So no, it didn't clarify anything for me.
Okay, all right.
Commissioner Simmons, did you want to speak?
If it was grants.
Nobody knows. What Commissioner Scott is saying.
Summary. I thought that Deputy Vetter came in here and discussed that, but I will go back and do a summary and
let us know.
let us, so that we can see exactly which vehicle was under the USDA. I'd be guessing off the top of my head. If I was to sit here and do it, no, but I can go back, pull all the paperwork, I'll do a summary, I'll get it forwarded. That way everybody can see the grant paperwork, what it is. So you have that actual information to work with.
Perfect. Anything? Mr. Mayhew? Anything else, Commissioner Simmons? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Item B, Department of Corrections Memorandum of Understanding. Tim?
We've got a memorandum of understanding that was forwarded to the county in relation to a public act that compels us to fund the DOC office at a level that is equal to or better than what we were on April 1 of 1980. The original memorandum of understanding that came in specifically talks about what amounts to our copy machine, and that the DOC would be allowed to use that, which is continuation, I think, of past practice. Counter proposal that I've drafted for you to send back for consideration by DOC would also compel compliance with the county building security policy, but also states that while that compliance is requested, that we do recognize there are occasions when a parolee may be arrested at the MDOC office. In that case, the MDOC staff would be allowed to use the southwest entrance that we usually use for inmates who are coming in for court and other purposes along that line. So it would, I think, be a more efficient route if they have that situation. However, we would anticipate compliance with the policy moving forward. So that's the proposal that I would recommend sending back to the state. And if they were in agreement that you would adopt that.
I guess how often this is on occasion when a parolee is arrested in the MDOC office, MDOC employees may utilize the Southwest, or how often does this happen?
Weekly.
Oh, it does? I don't know.
And
It's a good thing. I don't know. So,
a lot of times, like for a positive drug test, we are authorized to take one of our offenders over to the jail, lodge them, do a bench warrant for the judge, and then we have like what's called a 72-hour detainer for probationers, and then for parolees, we have the Department of Corrections has pretty much unlimited access to the arrest procedure because they're considered the property of the Department of Corrections. So all that being said, we have a lot of people who test positive for drugs. So there are numerous occasions when we are escorting them over to the jail. Often law enforcement assists us with that, but sometimes they're not available and you don't want to keep an agitated person any longer than you have to unsecured, so.
where's, anything to add, Commissioner Simmons?
Yes. Where's the agreement for the Xerox was signed already by the state. And it was denied, and then this security thing for that door was added to that MOU about Xerox machine. And we also have in our county building security on 1B about when you can come in and outdoors and you go through the machine, access at other times shall be limited to persons so authorized by a judge or department head. So I don't know if the judge says, yes, you can bring correction, people can bring people through there or not. You know, I wasn't at the security meeting, so I don't know that answer. Only the people that security meeting would know that answer.
Commissioner Mayhew?
I was at the security meeting and the judge said pretty much verbatim that that door was only to be used by law enforcement.
And that's fine. We can march our people through all the way through the courthouse and around.
You are part of law enforcement.
That's what we thought this whole time, but apparently we are not
That's what the
considered
judge
law
said
enforcement
is,
by some
is
people,
that
which is why
door
this is a
was for
problem.
law enforcement.
And if we're
Keep that-
considered law enforcement, great, but we heard that we were not considered law
I
enforcement, which
don't-
is why this has been an issue and we're confused because nobody
Right,
comes and talks to
Yeah,
us
really-
directly, except for Brenda last week, which we appreciated.
but.
Right, they
I
brought
was-
it to us.
I was at the meeting and that's what the guy said. So I guess if they're part of law enforcement,
That solves all of our problems.
but I don't know, Mr. Wiltie was there too.
Yeah, that's what the judge said. Tim, what's your take on, you were at that meeting?
I was, and this has been an ongoing issue for virtually since I've been here, as to who can use that door and who can't. The idea was actually generated back in 21 at a security committee meeting, and we did have the head of our security staff out front, Rick, who was expressing concern about the use of that door during daytime hours and then their ability to keep the building secure if people are coming in and out of there for their leisure, not necessarily for obviously taking inmates in and out. That's why that access is there. So I think where we're at is really a request to comply with the policy unless you have an inmate that has to come in and out. Otherwise, we're using the primary ingress and egress.
And since we got a copy of that policy last week that we didn't know existed,
Well,
we
you
actually have been.
Received a copy
we
of
have
that
been using
policy on the evening it was passed by
No,
the
we did
board.
not.
Yes, you
We
did.
got it last week.
All due respect, I sent an email to all of our email users. I did confirm that each of you were on that list when policy was passed in 2022, I believe. And it was an evening meeting of the board. That email went out at 7:31 that night to all users. So it is there, and I do question the so-called lack of knowledge. This has been a subject in this building, like I said, since I've been here. I don't know if you're a member of the security committee or not, or if anybody from DOC
They're not.
is represented, and that's something I can certainly talk to the court about. And I think it would be helpful if you were there so that you could partake in those conversations that hold 4 of those a year. And I'll get with Leanne and ask about that. But the bottom line is this. I don't think anybody questions using that entrance if you have somebody who's under arrest and you're taking them to the jail. I don't think anybody's questioning that. What the group did want to curtail was the use of that entrance for convenience. And that's where the concerns were raised.
And we've been following the policy.
Super. And I hope that continues.
Perfect.
So by what you just stated, this in the red that you added to that will be added to the policy.
Well,
correct?
what'll happen, this came to us and it was signed by the Department of Corrections Director. By sending that to this, that does not compel the county to just accept what was proposed. And
Correct.
typically with a memorandum of understanding, there can be a counter proposal. That's what I suggest that we do, is that we send this language back to Lansing, to Heidi Washington, and ask her to sign with that change. And then it will be back before you for final ratification, if that's acceptable to DOC.
I was on the security committee prior to the 2 new commissioners taking over, and it's been a topic, I believe, at every meeting as far as access to that door. There were supposed to be alarms put on that door, which I don't think has happened yet. I don't have a problem with you guys utilizing it when I agree when there is a prisoner or an individual is being taken over to the jail. Besides that, I think we need to stick to the strict guidelines that has been formed.
Okay, so there is no more misunderstandings because I think that there's a lot of that going on right now.
Agreed.
This is what we were given as
Right.
answers to my specific questions. And it repeatedly says policy 215, section B1.B, policy 215, section B1.D. Specifically, we start working at 7:30 in the morning, or certain members of our staff starts working at 7:30 in the morning. There is no one at the security. Your policy doesn't address that, so we are going under the assumption that we can use any door during the 7:30 to 8 o'clock, 8:30, whatever time your policy starts, hours. I don't leave until 5 o'clock. And again, security's gone by then. I can walk all the way around and go out that door, but it's gonna do absolutely nothing as far as security because they're gone. So.
And
If,
that's where a lot of this problem is coming, is people getting upset that we're using that back door at 7:30 in the morning. There is no one at the metal detector at 7:30 in the morning.
But go ahead.
But the rest of that section states access at other times shall be limited to those persons who are so authorized by a judge or department head. In advance notice is given to the chief security officer, meaning, with the judge, if the judge is okay with it, I mean, I'm
Our
not sure.
department head has signed the sheet.
But your department head is not a county department head.
And then I guess that's what we're trying to figure out today.
So that's.
Because we have
That's the
24-hour
point,
access.
but the
so
other
we
access-
assumed-
My point being that access at other hours is allowed with authorization. If this board wants to authorize that, Tom will make sure your key passes work during those times and
They already
we're good
do.
to go. Well,
Yeah.
which I would say probably suggests that some kind of authorization has already been granted at some point to do that.
And I would think that too, which is why we are very confused about why this has gone to this point. Nobody really wants to come out and say, yes, you guys can go ahead and use the doors at 7 o'clock in the morning or 7:30 in the morning and at 5 o'clock at night. Nobody wants to say it, but they're kind of implying that, yeah, you might be able to if you got authorization from some unknown person.
When all this started, there was a form that was sent out to all department heads that gave individuals access. It was a check form so can we locate that? I'm sure Tom has it.
Yes.
As far as how and who did provide access.
To address the immediate concern, if the board was willing, I'll be happy to prepare a resolution you can adopt next week that says DLC is authorized to have the after hours access. And then we clear that up once and for all.
I don't. I think whether security's there or not there, and it's only a couple steps out of the way. I think everybody should be used unless this specific instance where you do have an individual you're taking over to the jail. I think the main door should be utilized. I think it would stop a lot of this nitpicking that you guys have received, and I apologize for that. They come to us, and so we're kind of in the middle of this. I think it would stop all of that. Main door, security's there or not there unless there's an individual that's in custody or going to custody or whatever, but that's my opinion. So Commissioner
then
Scott,
to clear everything.
that's
up,
just
we are
fine.
Not considered law enforcement and we will be using that door.
That's my
Unless we're
opinion. Let me find out what these
transporting
guys have to
personnel.
say.
Okay, I'm just trying to narrow it
Yep.
down.
Commissioner Scott,
Well, I personally have observed people walking in that door during business hours and not with inmates or parolees or whatever. So I have been a big proponent of the security in this building right from day one. I don't like that idea at all. I understand law enforcement. I understand that. We have inmates coming to court through that room. We don't parade them through our general public access. If you got positive, you got people that need to go to the jail or go to the sheriff's department, absolutely. It's the use of this for other than official use. That's the bottom line. We're trying to secure the building so that we don't have, if an incident ever occurred here, we'd be able to say, we tried everything we could to secure this building. This is 2023.
So how does that secure
mean-
the building if I come in on a Sunday because?
I'm not talking about Sunday. I said during working hours.
the question that was just asked was, I think we're all to that point right now. Agreed. The question that was asked, if it's not between the hours of 8:30 and 4:30. Are you okay with them
I'm
utilizing
fine
any
with it. She comes in at 7:30 at night or Sunday, I don't care. Come in that door, fine. Personally, me. Now, this is a committee as a whole.
That's
We are
what I
not
just
making a
stated.
vote here today.
Commissioner Wiltie?
I disagree with Commissioner Scott and agree with you, what you brought up, Jen. Make things a lot easier. This is obviously something that we just need to get this figured out. We need to be consistent with it and move forward. There's a lot bigger topics that we could be dealing with. I think we use one door, and that's the way it should be utilized.
Commissioner Mayhew? What's your opinion? You got one, we need to hear it. You don't have an opinion whether they should, what door they should be using after hours? An opinion on what door they should be utilizing after hours?
It don't matter to me. What door they.
One door or any, so you say any door.
Ain't nobody here to tell what's the difference.
At 7:30, you're gonna, people are gonna be watching. They seem
I
to,
know.
that's how they ended up here.
I know.
So. Commissioner Simmons.
Me, I wait for somebody to let me in.
He doesn't have a badge. Don't want one either.
I stand there and wait.
Commissioner Simmons.
Well, you know, people are watching and I can understand using that door. But on the other hand, common sense tells me, what difference does it make? What door they come in? No one's here to check them anyway. So I mean, you can go either way with this, whichever way you want to go is fine with me. But. you
Okay,
know,
we have 2 and 2, so we need an opinion from you, so we can put this in the policy.
Well, you've got my opinion. That's it.
That wasn't an opinion.
What was it?
That was not, I don't care. Our choices are use the main door at all times unless you're
Have a criminal.
correct.
Well, if it would stop the chatting that goes on,
That's,
you know, from people who don't have other things to do besides watch that door, then it would help us out a great deal.
and then there's a consistency. And again, I get your guys' point.
Use that door, just that door, and just use that door when you have a criminal.
And then if anything does occur, I mean, I don't know where cameras are going or whatever, at least we have some consistency of where people were supposed to be. That's my only point, Ty. So was that your stance?
Yeah, because other people have other things to do besides, nothing to do besides watch that door.
Tim, did you,
4 hours.
Tim, did you follow that?
You're sitting in the parking lot watching.
Yeah, I followed it.
So can you go forward with that?
If.
The general
if you're-
consensus?
With your general consensus, I would like to send the amended memorandum of understanding to Department of Corrections for the review, and hopefully they'll sign off on it and bring it back to you for the final ratification of it. If unless I hear anything different, that's what
Well,
I'll do.
We'd kind of like to just find this one and keep that separate from this whole security
I
issue. This
appreciate
is
that
a-
you would, but we don't really have any other leverage.
You don't
you're-
have any leverage anyways.
Well, it's kind of the county's building, so I would say we have some leverage there. But this is an opportunity to memorialize the intentions of the county in the form of a memorandum of understanding that we all agree to.
Well, it's my understanding that the
Madam Chair, I
county
don't know if
is
you want me to debate
obligated.
back and forth,
No,
or how you want to handle that.
Sure.
I gotta.
I got a couple.
yes. And then we gotta move on, guys.
Well,
9 o'clock.
the building department had the same kind of issue. They need to have their constituents or their builders come in before security hours.
Correct.
We put them down the annex building. We got some empty offices down there. Let's move them down there.
Perfect.
Tim, what's
I would
the,
love that.
I'd have to look at the floor space, make sure that it's adequate, but if we are all agreeable, that's definitely a solution. It takes the problem right out of this building.
Drug testing, we'd have to have separate bathrooms in a lobby area.
we don't have that down there.
Yeah, there's bathrooms in the lobby.
Not for what they're looking for drug testing. I mean, it's gotta be very specific.
No, it doesn't.
Just, I mean, an extra bathroom that we don't like the.
You guys can collaborate with Tim on this.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Where are we at with the memo? Nobody's gonna sign it?
Oh,
What do you mean? Nobody's, if we're going to move,
There was the request is that came from Lansing was to put in writing that we will provide a copy machine for their use, which again, I don't think is up for debate. I think that's fine. if we're going to remain in the building, I mean, this is an opportunity to make sure that you get recognition of the policy at the state level and that they're agreeing to comply with it. I don't know how urgent this is in terms of the state. We could just let it sit until we talk about accommodations at the annex and whether that'll work. And then just let this wait until that.
Are you guys okay with that? Is there any
We
urgency
don't
to
really
this?
want to have to come back to another meeting, as we were just hoping to be able to get this over with.
No, I mean, obviously, there's more to this conversation. If you're talking about moving and. I mean, if you want it over with now, we can move forward with what we just discussed, and there will be a resolution at the next meeting of the building, the copy machine. I mean, unless moving is an option for you guys, there's gonna have to be further discussion.
And we don't really care whether we move or not. I mean, that's, you guys brought it up, like this is gonna be some punishment for us.
No, it's not.
We really, it doesn't matter either way. to
It
us.
doesn't
We just,
matter. We just need
it
this.
took weeks to get the director of the Department of Corrections to sign this. I didn't come up with this wording on my own. The state of Michigan sent this to me and said, have it signed by the the director of the Department of Corrections first, then it has to be signed by the county administrator, which I thought was Tim. So this is what they gave me.
He's saying
I
that's,
have no idea what else needs
he's
to
saying that's
happen.
gotta go back to the state, so that's where we're at with it. So there'll be more to come on that.
Well,
We have to
wants-
follow
he
the
wants to
direction.
Make some changes.
Correct. We have to follow the direction of our administrator, which is what he's recommending.
Okay.
So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item C, bus wash bay project.
Raise here.
Come on up.
Is, continuation of conversation we had a week ago. We received a proposal, in response to an RFP to add the transit building bus wash bay, and this is funded through a grant, I believe federal grant, but the state is involved in administering. The total price for the project came in at $399,971. In conversation with Ray, we are pretty certain at this stage that, while we have to go through our contacts at the state to get their approval to use the funding, that we will probably get it. And we do have a commitment from somebody at the state level to help shepherd that through so that the proposal could be received. The original concern was we only received one bid, and they like to see more than one bid, and then they can compare them and pick the best one. Well, there was only one bid. We did direct mail each of the contractors that we knew of in the county, and had a couple of other locations that disseminate RFPs to their members, firms who do this kind of work. And this is the only one that came in. So what we'd like to do is put a resolution on for Thursday that you accept the proposal subject to state approval. And then that will allow us to move forward as soon as we get the nod, which hopefully will be imminent, and we can get the project off and running. And again, I would emphasize, and Ray can dive into the details if you need it. These are funds that are grant monies that are going to pay for this. This isn't general fund money or even millage money, although that would be eligible for use. But the bottom line is a project that we asked for funding was through a federal program, if I remember. So a grant is here. We'd like to get everything locked in as best we can and get the contractor moving as soon as we can.
Now, the grant wasn't the total of 399,000. So you're not correct. We're gonna have to use some monies.
Well, utilize, some of the fund balance that transit has to balance this out. And some of those monies come from state, federal, and local sources. So it's all sort of commingled.
What was the grant amount, Ray? Do you recall?
180,000.
And is there a time on this, just so that if we're asked this, is
Yes,
there a
there
time that
is.
we have to spend this 180,000?
And it would be, it has to be finalized, all the money spent by next August, I believe, August 1st, August 8th, maybe.
And
So we have a year.
we have, without that millage, we have we're okay as far as our fund balance. If we move forward with this,
Well, we have it in the bank, so to speak, at this point.
Yep.
No way to know what we'll have in the bank 2 years from now.
agreed,
But now
the millage will be on next year
it's there.
for renewal, correct?
Mhm. But we will have one millage renewal next year, but it's not sufficient to meet the demands of the transit,
Because we lost that other millage that
Yes.
expired.
Yes.
So we are gonna have to look at forming a new millage
That's
to combine them
Kind of-
possibly.
Kind of my hope, yeah.
Okay.
Because we need a little bit more millage too. And as you know, all costs just keep going up and up and up.
Absolutely. I just
The
wanted to
state keeps dropping what they're giving us, so.
I just wanted to verify there's enough fund balance to support this
Oh, yeah.
and support the transit for the next year.
Oh, yes. There are some things that I just thought I would mention today real quick. We have this security gate and this security cameras and stuff. That is a total of $55,000 that is actually tied into this grant. I've talked to MDOT with some talk with them. We could get that $55,000 added to the $180,000. So that makes it, so we don't have to use quite as much of our money to do this project. Then we could do the security gate and the security cameras on our own with just our three proposals versus going through the state, federal government again with this. We'd have to do prevailing wage on all of this, and it makes the price of the security gate and stuff, it just adds to it. So, and do we need the security gate? That's another thing. It was just an idea I had really to help out the airport, because the airport is secure. You can't just drive onto the airport, but from the transit, you can go right out onto the airport without a problem.
Now, this equipment that you're talking about, is it something you can take to your committee? Make a decision and then come back to us?
Yeah, so I
Has it
just
been
want-
taken to the
I
committee?
just wanted to bring it up right now, just to get the ball rolling in case we had some interest in doing this. And it will be discussed in what's our first meeting, the 16th?
16th will be our first
Yep.
meeting with the three new
Yep.
committee members.
So what do you commissioners feel about as far as putting this on for a resolution for the bid that we have for $399,971 going forward with the West Ross Bay project?
No problem, let's do it.
Commissioner Simmons?
Nope, I'm good.
With,
And look at some dates is all. We're good.
you're good with what?
Transit meeting minutes.
How about the $399,971 resolution?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Mayhew. Commissioner Wiltie.
I fully support it. All local contractors, this additional 55,000 is just a little more icing on the cake. I think we need to move forward. So we can let Miller Construction know, because they're locking down all their work, and we want to be able to get this moving forward.
Ray, are we gonna see this before you retire?
I hope so.
Me too. You did all the field work on it.
Well,
You hang out till this is done.
I'm thinking that, if we let Miller Construction know in a timely manner, I think that it will be done by fall.
I appreciate you seeking out grants and doing all the work that you've done. So I really would. I think it'd be very good if you stuck around
Oh,
until
I'm
this
going to.
project.
I'll be around enough.
This is something you wanted to see.
Yes, it is.
So
It is. You know, I dropped the ball on the
millage,
the millage, but it is.
got a
what it
little
is.
help now, which
Exactly.
you,
Yeah.
we appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
All righty. Thank you.
Item B, housing program grant.
This is brought to you by the housing program. They would like to apply for a USDA grant in the amount of $75,000 for the housing preservation program. The program itself requires a pre-application approval of the governing body, which is you. So that's what's being requested.
Is this the same amount as last year?
I think it's a little bit more. And Leanne's been quite successful as these grants are dispersed of also securing additional funds from communities who don't take the grant. So we could conceivably get more than 75,000, but that would be our application. And I think it's 25,000 more than last year.
Do you know if all of that, because I've sent a lot of individuals her way. Do you know if all those monies have been spent?
That's a revolving program. So even if monies are spent, we have people making payments back into the program, which can also then be put back out into the community. So it's ongoing. And she does a very good job of dispersing funds. And these funds, just like what Ray was talking about, often come with a deadline. We'll have to have them spent by a certain amount. I don't know what that deadline is for this grant, but Leanne's been very successful in getting those monies out.
Okay, I don't absolutely put that on for resolution. Agreed, commissioners?
Yes. Yes.
Item E, 911 surcharge.
Okay, since adoption of the resolution a couple of months ago about the surcharge, Jesse has done some research and actually came up with a resolution from 2013, which set that surcharge at $1.38. Well, the resolution we passed was the minimum amount because that's all the information we had to work with. And I think it was something like 48 cents. So this is, 42 cents. So this is quite a difference. And what she has asked us to do is just pass another resolution that would rescind the one that was adopted in March. And instead of 42 cents, insert the $1.38 so we continue the surcharge that was already in place.
Right, our amount was just incorrect. We're
Right.
not changing anything. We're just continuing with what surcharge is currently being collected.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
if that was true.
Commissioner Scott,
Yep.
Commissioner Wiltie,
That's cool.
Yes.
Commissioner Mayhew. Okay. Item F, contract policy amendment.
So in March of 21, the board approved contract procedures policy, and that policy focused mainly on the execution of contracts, which kind of gets to what we were talking about with DOC. When my name was on that contract, that has to be changed. We say the board chair signs all contracts on behalf of the county, and we're pretty consistent about that unless you pass a resolution that says otherwise. So all of that's in there, but a flaw appeared when we were talking a few weeks ago about the contract negotiated for housing inmates at the jail. And there was, adamant that the board needs to be represented at negotiations that have to do with finances so that your wishes are known at the table. So what this amendment would do is just simply add that whenever a negotiation is necessary for a purchase price, that a representative of the board, primarily your county administrator acting on your behalf, is at the table when those negotiations happen. I know there was some confusion over, gosh, who met whom and what have you. Well, this will help to, set in place what that expectation is if you were so interested in the amendment.
And this was not in there previously.
Right.
Wow. How did that get overlooked?
It sounds like we were more concerned about filing and signing than we were about the actual negotiation.
Commissioner Scott, I'm sure you have something.
Ooh, me? Well, I mean, everybody likes to build their own kingdom. And
See?
autonomy, and they want autonomy, but not in public government. You can't do that because it all has to be out in the open. And the commissioners need to know, need to know everything about it. If it involves money, it involves the commissioners.
Right.
If it involves, like, I'll just say Brex because she's sitting next to me. She's an elected official. She hires her own people. She runs her own office. She has her own policies in her own office. Commissioners don't mess with that. You spend money though, we got to know about it. We got to know.
Seat at the table. Commissioner Wiltie.
Yeah, I was just extremely surprised after the whole Kalkaska inmate deal that these type of measures weren't put into place. This is really important stuff. We need to be consistent and we need to have measures like this in place that we know moving forward. Proper chain will happen, and this is very important and this needs to happen.
Commissioner Simmons.
This would resolve a lot of issues, but I want to make some comments about prior to this, in previous years.
Quickly.
They have always done the negotiation as far as prices go. They've always come to the board for approval. So the commissioners really did know. We just weren't part of the negotiations. And now that that policy's changed, or is changing, I'm sure the sheriff's department or the corrections department was not aware of that because they've always done that, brought it to us, we approve it, and away we go. But now all of a sudden it's changed and they didn't know it. So I would say we were slack because we didn't tell them. Because when you're doing business status quo over the years, and all of a sudden you change it, I think you need to tell somebody so they know the change is taking place.
All of a sudden, it's over 3 years.
Okay,
All of a sudden, wasn't just.
But
last
did
month.
you tell them on that? Have they come within 3 years? And have they come?
Tim, hold on, guys. We
Last
could
year,
go,
last
Commissioner
year.
Scott, we could go back and forth. Tim, go ahead. Please add your opinion.
Well, bottom line is, it's not in our policy and it needs to be if that's what the board's wishes are. So that it will end all debate on the issue. It has come up once before, you might recall, about a year ago. You were presented with a contract for a school resource officer at Whittemore Prescott. And there was a number negotiated in that price that was not consistent with what the board's wishes were. And so we sent the sheriff back and said, you need to come up with, I think it was a $75,000 figure versus about $57,000 that was negotiated. This very discussion occurred at that time about having a representative of the board at the table when those negotiations go on. In respect to what Commissioner Simmons just said, we didn't have that in writing, so I can understand how that would be overlooked, and this will, as I said, end the debate. There won't be any question from here on.
Great, I agree. This needs to be added. Mr. Mayhew? Because all we know is what's brought back to us. If we have somebody at the table, we know the facts.
I agree
we
with
know the
that.
Figures.
But everybody
Agreed.
that's playing the game needs to know that.
Can you forward when this comes on next Thursday, then can you forward this updated policy to all departments?
Yes.
Perfect. So then everybody knows.
Everybody.
Item G, jail Blue Cross contract.
This is an annual contract that for the Blue Cross coverage for inmates. I'm looking through here trying to find a cost, and I remember as I'm reading this that they are generally percentage based. So they have all their percentages for their administrative fees. There is an advance deposit of $11.39. This is not what I would call a budget breaker by any means for the jail. When you see this line, it's pretty reasonable in the budget, but a very important component. This again, otherwise we're going to be held reliable or responsible for 100% of the medical costs for all the inmates with no insurance coverage. So this is protection for the county, and I do recommend that you renew the agreement. I believe I'm the only provider for that coverage for jails. So I'm not sure we even have much choice.
Is it an increase or you don't know? Because I didn't see that neither.
Yeah. I'll just say I can't imagine there's not an increase, but I would really need to go back and start applying these percent figures to the numbers that we already have just to see, and then maybe even compare it to last year to see where it stands.
So this doesn't tell me what we're actually paying. Are we just paying the $11.39? Or then are we paying a 13% on top of that? Like, I don't understand this.
Yeah. I think maybe the undersheriff might be able to answer that. I certainly, I don't deal with that day to day to know what the.
I just don't see a figure. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously we have to do it. It'd just be nice to know if we knew what the figure was. Do we have an answer? Can we find out?
Check it out.
I'm sorry. Do you want us to come back to that, Paul?
Yeah, I'm looking through.
Okay,
Thanks.
so we'll go on and come back. H Sting 2023 invoice.
Year ago, we renewed our membership, I guess, with Sting, $10,000. We made that payment through ARPA. But the discussion at the time was that in future years, we would hopefully use the opioid settlement dollars to continue our membership with Sting. And that hasn't changed. As you know, we've reviewed some of the eligible expenses under the opioid program over a few meetings now. This is definitely one area that is eligible for funding. And I appreciate we don't have a committee in place yet, but I do recommend that we proceed, commit the 10,000 out of the opioid fund and continue our participation with Sting.
I agree, 100%. He was here last year. Has anybody heard from him? Who's on the Sting? Isn't it you, Commissioner Wiltie?
Yep, we had a meeting last Friday. The sheriff was there. Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Matt Jordan.
All right.
He's the one who I spoke with, and yeah, I'm 100% supporter of this. And I just want to make a quick comment, and they brought it up last week. It really is true. So they've got 6-county area there, and they may not be so much have a big bus, say here in Ogemaw County, but they just had a big bus down in Bay County. And a lot of those people that were in Bay County being involved with that were narcotics that were coming up to Ogemaw County. So the things that they're doing in all these surrounding counties also do affect us, because one way or the other, a lot of times it still is coming into the county. It's a great group. Fully support this.
Commissioner Scott?
Oh, I support it. It's just, I didn't want to use the ARPA money. I wanted to wait for the opiate money.
Commissioner Mayhew?
If we can do the sting, can't we get the scanner for the jail?
Yeah, we did. We approved
We
that.
got that all figured out.
Approved Sending it
For
over.
RFPs, we
Yeah.
approved it, but it's going out for the RFP, so we'll hear more back on that.
Right,
Yes,
it's gonna be done now.
yep, as soon as we get their finalization on it.
Okay.
We have to vote on it. It's gotta go to but I'm
But I
assuming,
mean, they were saying we had to wait for the committee and
well, it was brought out. It was an idea to wait for the committee, but I think we all have general consensus.
if we can do this, we should be able to do that.
Correct. Agreed. So we'll put that on for resolution. Come on up, Paul.
So Yvonne Johnson is the prison health services client manager. That's a representative that we deal with Blue Cross, or I should say Nicole David does. The email says, please see the attached 2023 Schedule A renewal for inmate medical plan. All benefits and cost shares remain the same. However, there was a small rate increase of 2% due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
2%.
So 2% rate increase is what.
So what was the rate last year? Is it a total of the 1139? Like, what did we pay last year total?
That,
I'd be able to tell you that.
I understand the rate. I still don't see an amount that we're actually paying.
yeah, that's,
I think that's going to depend on how much services we end up having to have. So this is offsetting costs that an inmate, medical costs an inmate might have. I don't know what the health is of our inmates when we bring them in. I don't think anybody does.
I don't think we get to screen that.
Can we find out though what we paid last year? I mean, I think that.
I
that's
think
relevant.
I can tell you. I stand corrected. I only have the 23 numbers in front of me. I have that, and I can tell you exactly what we paid last
Okay,
year for
can you
this.
give that to us? Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Item I, right of first refusal.
You have some information provided by the county treasurer about properties that have been foreclosed in the county. And the counties and all municipalities have a right of first refusal to take possession of these properties in exchange for the property tax that's owed. Quite candidly, I don't see any property on there that should be of interest to the county, but that's your call. But it would mean literally taking on more property and keeping that insured and everything else that we have to do with all of our properties.
I looked over the list. I didn't see anything that we wanted.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
It's just the tax. Like for instance, the city here had one. I just went to their meeting. They had one down here on 2nd Street that's up for tax. They get after the county, the city got first right of refusal or not. And they refused it. They didn't want it either.
So we're refusing right now to purchase it, but obviously if this goes back, it goes back to the county anyways.
It'll go up for sale at the county
Tax
tax
sale.
sale.
Yeah, we get.
Okay,
And then if,
we just get first dibs.
and then if it doesn't go through tax sale, then it comes back to us, falls on us anyways.
Yeah, we just keep retaining it. It just, but the problem there is nobody pays any property taxes on it while we retain it.
This is something we do annually?
The right of first refusal is always there, yeah,
So there's no change to what we currently do.
right.
I looked at those numbers, but they didn't mean much to me, the parcels and all of that, so.
So first the county, then the townships and the cities.
One of my townships was talking about one of the properties. Anything, Commissioner Mayhew?
No.
Commissioner Simmons?
No.
Commissioner Wiltie?
Yeah, just one thing. Have we ever in the past found some of these, since we do have the first right? If it is a property that we could actually make money on? Have we ever done, we've actually retained it and then we sold it for profit?
No,
Kinda with the
we
land.
already do that.
That's a dangerous proposition these days.
Yeah.
You may remember our discussion about the Fox case a week or so ago. My history here is limited, obviously, to 3 years, and it has not happened in 3 years, but I can't say going back if there's ever been a time where the county did that.
Commissioner Simmons?
I think we have taken property for our own use, but we've never sold property we've taken that I'm aware of. We have first dibs because we need to use it. And I think we did that over there. There's a garage over there. We have storage stuff in. And I think we chose to keep that. And the house was
okay.
burned down, but we kept the garage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right over across the street.
Yeah.
from the parking lot.
Yeah. And we
Um,
still have that garage and we. for storage.
yeah. The county has sold property over and above the tax sale in the past. But like this, we refuse any of this. Say all the townships or whatever's left after the refusals, then goes on to tax sale.
Right.
And then and Tim's referring to this new court case that came up in the last recent years.
A huge court case.
Who makes money off
About
of
the
it?
profit,
Right,
previous owners, yeah.
right.
Yeah, I just thought on a special occasion, if, we did have a gem that we could make a profit for the county, but I do understand the other side of that too.
Well, we got some lots right around the
Yeah.
corner over here, a couple lots over on Seventh Street. If we didn't want to use them, we could sell them. I mean, we have been, across the street. The detail shop wanted to buy the parking lot from us. We opted not to sell it. We have an agreement with her that she gets to use it if she maintains it. And that comes up on now a
3-year.
3-year, I think, basis.
Yeah, she does the
Yeah.
snow plowing and
She does the snow plowing, she had it seal coated.
Yep.
Things like that. And then there's another lot over there. That she wanted to buy and we just retained it.
Right.
And
How do
we don't, my basis was, we don't know what we're gonna do with it 20 years from now.
you're gonna put this on for resolution?
No, unless you have some property on there that you want to
No.
bid, then
So we
no,
just
there's.
bypass this. Okay. How do you guys feel about a break? Let's take a quick one.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. 10 minutes.
I didn't need one.
10 minutes, right?
Okay. 10 minutes.
Yes, we have.
Right.
Oh, man, we've covered a lot of stuff.
You smile.
I was gonna say, we need to rock back and forth to get it.
Oh, I was just wondering, do you need here?
Sounds like that. High prices. There was a lot of misinformation.
Oh, yeah, I don't. Maybe it's- Friends.
Michael.
Well,
That's not necessarily true.
right, right.
Great opportunity.
Still are.
Still on.
Yeah, we're still lying.
Next.
Yeah.
No, this is John Bright. We have a PPO. And so that is like harassing this girl at work.
I gotta go. Okay, that was the main thing, though. I figured you saw it.
If you want to, I can do an all.
Okay, we weren't sure how long, I mean, he's on his way, we weren't sure. We just. We don't- But, yeah,
The person needs are asking in this building.
Good. Thank you.
Lance, how are you?
Just fine, sir. How are you?
Now.
Go get 'em.
All right. I have a template. So it's right down here.
Well, that's what they said. Maybe Tim said something. I'm like, "You're in there." I mean, the guy might be here, but it's here. So.
Why were you coming?
Because we're the ones that issue the invoice.
He's mad at us.
general. That's why people get PPOs when they. Propose it, and that we. The dealer, city dealer.
Right. Incredible story.
Break.
I ran down.
Yeah, it can't ruin my day.
What? You made it that quick? That's what I just had. Way too much.
Door no?
Yeah, that's what you say. They have pictures and everything.
Other guns with them. I don't want them coming in.
I'm guessing our security does.
You probably have more than one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're younger. I dig it.
Notify the sheriff's office. They notify the sheriff.
Huh?
First of all, my mom.
It's our word. Because that's where. the person would-
December when I got here, you saw.
I caused one.
They can't get in there.
What did you say?
Should have been.
Last December 2020.
No. What time did I say that at? I had coffee, that coffee and I had coffee. Let's get a lot of pressure.
It's too early to stage for it.
Yes, sir.
Checking to see if there's a mute button here.
Good.
Right.
There we go.
Bless you,
Thank you.
whoever that was.
All
Okay,
right.
can you go over those numbers one more time?
Sure
I
can.
apologize. I got 25 vehicles, 15 transit, 2
Building.
building.
Yep.
25 vehicles, that was the sheriff's department?
Non-sheriff's office,
Non-sheriff's.
non-patrol vehicles, we'll say, because there's 4 vehicles under the sheriff's office that are the transported to jail that we're not gonna buy modems for because of the cost. So we got 15 transit, 2 building, 1 probate, 1 equalization / zoning, because they share a vehicle,
Okay,
1 animal control, 4 transported to jail, and 1 maintenance vehicle.
so these are all that we currently have GPS up and running for.
Correct.
So how many do we have for patrol vehicles?
13.
13 total?
Yep. And I have received 1 modem from the vendor, which was ordered at the beginning of April.
Is one modem able to support all of these numbers?
No, 1 modem is temporarily mounted in the 1 vehicle that we were using for testing. So after we get this equipment, arrangements are gonna have to be made to get the vehicles up to, I believe, Roscommon.
Correct.
To install it, because I can't install this equipment. The cages are gonna have to come out of the vehicles because the roof has to come down, the ceiling has to come down on the inside. And the external antennas have to be mounted on top. All that wiring's gonna have to be ran. And then once that's done, they're obviously gonna have to rotate those out. Can't take them all up there at once. Those vehicles are to come back here, and then I will have to do my part to get the rest of that set up electronically to communicate back to our network. And then the computer work's gonna have to be done. It's not just GPS, it's also patrol car connectivity. So there's gonna have to be some work done there. She, like I said, she told me at the end, when I asked her yesterday, she said, looks like it's gonna be the end of October, and then she got back with me and said possibly at the end of May. Which obviously we're in May right now, so I'm hoping we get them. We did get the antennas, but I did not get the modems, only 1.
So I guess I don't understand the antenna and the modem and all of that. So all of these numbers that you just gave us, they can't actually, the GPS is not working. You have the GPS. It's just not being utilized because of the rest of the equipment's not here in the modem support?
Are you asking about sheriff's office patrol cars?
I'm not talking about the 25 vehicles, 15 transit.
Those are operational.
They're operational.
Those do not get modems. Those are totally separate pieces of equipment. They're all installed. They're all tracking. Ray has a login to see the transit vehicles. Tim has a login to see the building and zoning vehicles, the county maintenance truck. Lieutenant Ozier has a login to see the transport vehicles. Sheriff has a login for animal control, the transport vehicles. He can see all those, but not patrol vehicles, not ones that are out on the road.
That's where you need the
That's the modems,
okay.
2
And
totally separate systems.
questions? Commissioner Simmons? Commissioner Mayhew? Commissioner? Let's see.
What determines, what in a vehicle determines whether it needs a modem or not?
Whether or not it's going to appear on the map at dispatch.
Oh, well, so we're not gonna be able, dispatch won't be able to train a transit bus.
Correct. They don't want to.
No, why would they?
Well, if there was a problem with a transit bus, I mean, not with the bus itself, but emergency needed. And where are you? You know, say the bus driver has a heart attack and dies.
Can anyone pick that? Is that available to anyone to track?
No.
Well,
They have to call
everybody's on it.
transit to see where the bus is at.
They have their own system anyways. We did this for our tracking. They have their own
Okay.
system. They can see where they're at. And then
Okay.
remember, this is a multi-county project.
Right.
Our dispatchers and IOSCO dispatchers and Aranac dispatchers don't want to see our transit buses. They don't want to see our maintenance vehicles. They want to see patrol cars.
Patrol. So will you keep us updated?
Sure.
So that you're looking at possibly the equipment you said in May?
The end of May.
What did you, and I shouldn't do this to you, but I'm going to.
It's fine.
Give me a rough estimate of when you foresee all of this up and fully running.
Not happening. I'm not in charge of this. I mean, I'm managing it.
Come on, Tom.
There's no,
Give me something.
all right, I'll give you a date. You tell me when COVID's done as a family nurse practitioner.
I can. It will never be totally gone.
Well, I can do better than that.
I like that. It's much better. I don't have to wear a mask anymore.
December 31st of 2023.
Say that again.
December 31st of 2023.
I'll buy that. I
Oh, it'll be
appreciate
done by
that.
the end of the year. I mean, as long
See,
as.
that's what I was looking for, Tom.
Get done by the end of the year.
Something from you. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Can I throw one more thing out here?
Maybe. Is
In
it money?
regards to the MDOC?
What? Go ahead.
I found the security committee meeting minutes from October 7th of 2021, where there was discussion about the continued complaints about the southwest door being used. And I did not bold this, but right at the end of it from the minutes was MDOC is exempt from this per Judge Noble and Judge Bennett. So here's what I'd like to ask you guys as a group. Why don't you guys get together with the courts? Because we have our security committee,
Yep,
we have the courts,
yep.
and nobody can agree on who has the ultimate authority over access to this building. I know what 6 people are gonna say here. We do. And then I know what the judges and elected officials are gonna say. We do.
The judges, where do you pull in the elected officials into that? They have
She has ultimate say over who has access to her office.
to her office. Yes, I thought you meant the security. I apologize for
Can't
that.
give her 24-hour access to her office if she can't get into a door.
Correct. The question was, is how many doors and which door?
Who's to say that? Who am I to who am I to tell Breck that she can't use that door on a weekend?
Well, that's what we were deciding.
I know.
Again, we are doing everything possible to try to secure this building,
I
which
know.
is we've spent a lot of money on and
Understood.
continue to spend a lot of money on. The cameras were brought up, which is $30,000 or dollars to continue to secure this building.
Mhm.
So that doesn't make sense to me to continue to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to try to secure this building if we're still gonna do the same things.
Correct. And one thing that I said to Tim yesterday, I can't give them access if they're arresting somebody then and then take it away after they're done. I'm not always here. You know, it's all or none
It's
for them.
going to be an exit, though. That's not so much an entrance issue at that stage. And just for the record, commissioners, I did send you an email last night that Judge Bennett is on record saying he will support the decision of the board on access and using that door. So I appreciate that Judge Noble is on that set of minutes, but he's also no longer in the court. And I believe Judge Bennett is the chief judge.
Yes.
There's just been a lot of controversy on this. It'd be
Agreed.
very simple if it was black and white.
I
This
agree.
is all this gray.
That's
So-
all I'm asking for. I would like this board to get together with the courts because
Yeah.
just because Judge Noble or Judge Bennett is chief judge now and Judge Noble is gone, who has the ultimate say over their people?
Judge Bennett.
I'd love to say it was me.
Exactly. Because every idea Craig Scott has is fantastic.
If you don't believe it, ask him.
I know, but here I am, stuck in the middle of this a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I'm doing what I'm told by one group and then getting told to do something by another group. We've got 2 different policies.
Tom, do you remember when we did come out with that checklist initially, when we
Correct.
were part of the security meeting and each department head was going through and doing specific access?
Correct.
Who did that department, the MDOC? Who?
Well, actually, I imagine Rick Millars would have back then because nobody's really changed other than Tara, who has come aboard. So possibly Ken did her form, but Rick Millars would have done them back then. But I had told Tim this before. I specifically remember sitting in that room over there with Judge Noble
I was there.
sitting next to me. And we were duking it out over MDOC. And I said, they're not law enforcement. They don't go over and pull people over. They're not MCO certified. And he said, they're law enforcement.
I don't remember that, but I'm sure I was there at that meeting.
And I said, but, and he said, they're law enforcement. And I think that's where these minutes came about.
Things change.
Oh, yeah, I know.
But
I'd
I
like to see some black and white too.
agreed,
Absolutely.
agreed. And I think that's what our whole goal is, and to stop all this nitpicking and
Mhm.
scuttlebutt and, okay,
Agreed.
thanks, Tom.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for rolling that put into your report.
Item K, Opiate Committee.
Just an update for the board. You'd asked us to contact directly some of the frontline workers to gauge their interest in serving on that committee. We're still in the process of doing that, but I do have 2 applications in. So we are making some progress. It's slow but steady
That's all we have to do.
so far. We haven't browbeat anybody yet, so.
Well,
What was the deadline on that? You were weren't we gonna put a deadline when we sent them back out?
I don't recall a deadline, but we have a list that thankfully Kelly was able to compile, based on what we had discussed a couple of months ago. And so we have contacts with each of our first responder units, obviously with the prosecutor's office, the sheriff and so on. So we'll make direct contact and say, are you interested? would you serve on this committee? Rather than waiting, wishy-washy for a response. And if we get a yes, we'll send them the application directly. They can fill it out and get it back to us. We can actually help them do it right then on the phone online if they'd like, but either way, we'll see what we've got and then bring the names back.
We talked at the last meeting, it was the last meeting, correct, of sending a message back out a little bit more blunt, I guess, and I thought we had just talked about a deadline, so that way we can hopefully get a response.
Yeah, I don't remember a deadline, but I
don't think we had made a decision on one, but I thought we were gonna include that in the message. Am I
My
incorrect?
suggestion was send a letter out 1st of May and the May 30th was the deadline. If you don't
Respond.
say like the hospital's on that list.
Mhm.
Send it to the hospital. They don't have an answer back and by the end of the month, they don't want to be involved.
Yeah, the thought in contacting the hospital, while our contact might not be interested, they might know somebody within the organization who would be a good person.
Who's on the EDC? Ray, which is,
So
yes, he'd be a great contact for my Michigan, and the gentleman at McLaren too, who runs the year, April. Just thinking of the hospitals. Why can't I can see his face? I will, yes, he'd be the contact for
There
that.
is a lady, I forget her name, I can look on my email from my Michigan that did say she wanted to be
Oh.
on it already. I've never heard of her. Kathy Powell.
So again, I agree with you, contacts, but I think we need a deadline. Resubmit that message with a deadline for a response.
right, but
They
I
need to
think
move forward.
if somebody's just out there that works at My Michigan, I think that My Michigan needs to say that that's our representative
Absolutely.
and not just somebody who works there. But that, there's too much.
Right, we
social
just-
Media out
We
there,
just gotta make sure it gets in the hands where somebody's going to open it and actually read it.
unofficial.
So if we can continue to put this on, and maybe if you can disperse to us, who's responded and who's not, so that way if we have any contacts, we can reach out to them and say, hey, we
Yeah.
received this, kind of some communication.
Are we gonna use that May 30th date?
I say yes.
We need to have some type of stop point so we can start seeing some.
Yeah,
Progress.
by the first cow meeting in June, we should be able to bring you a list.
Perfect, thank you. Item L, second quarter budget adjustments.
As promised, it is more involved than the first quarter was. I'm not going to go through the 48 pages of details unless you need to zero in on one, but I will review the overall, the big picture. The first on the general fund, the proposed changes include $217,942 in additional revenue. Expenditures are up as well, and you can see, and I'll review some of these by department here in a second. You see a number of funds listed first, and several of them have zeros in the FY23 budget. And I'll start right with that marriage and counseling fund. There was no budget approved for that fund when we did the budget back in September. Funds are being utilized out of that now, so we need to have a budget to reflect that use. Land bank the same way. We didn't have a budget when we originally adopted the appropriations resolution, but now the land bank obviously is active and they've submitted a budget proposal. Where you see zeros in the proposed change, you might wonder why that one's even listed. And we'll start with the friend of the court. The bottom line for the friend of the court fund does not change, but there was some movement within the non-personnel items. So I'm just drawing your attention to those, and that's something departments can do. But if you're interested in what those changes were, you'll want to jump down to the friend of the court and look at that. Going through the others, big miss that we had on the original was the Veterans Soldier Relief Fund. We had no budget adopted, but that's a very active fund. That's one that's used for things like flags that go on the grave and go on. And so Jeff has submitted that, and we've proposed that to be included. Moving on, there aren't really any that in the rest of those funds that are all that exciting. You next see the revenue breakdown in the 4 different categories rather than listing each of the line items, but you have that line item detail in one of the other documents. Now, jumping down to the general fund expenditures, there's been quite a bit of activity. I do want to start by talking about the very first item that you see there called address numbering. It's actually an activity or department that's in the general fund, but there's also a special fund for the address numbering committee. And that committee frankly hasn't been active in quite a while, but we do continue to do address numbering. And it actually generates some revenue for the county each year. And I bring this up because that address numbering fund, it's separate from the general fund, actually has a fund balance in it. It's only a couple $1,000s, but it's just sitting there not doing anybody any good. It was intended to monitor when all the address numbering first happened. So on the third quarter, you might see some amendments that bring some of that fund balance that's just sitting there back over to the general fund, again, to offset costs for doing the address numbering that we do on a day-to-day basis now. And I can't recall if it's equalization or the building department that's in charge of that. But there are definitely some expenses, and that would be eligible to offset some of those expenses. Going down through the departments, some of the highlights. Airport is a new activity. We signed the agreement earlier this year where we're doing a lot of their payroll work for them, but they are reimbursing the county for that. So we do have to show the expense, but there is an equal revenue coming in to offset that amount.
Yeah.
With the board, there was some movement again in the non-personnel items. I believe it had to do with training that we did. So we shifted some money of that exactly from what, like a contracted services or something, so that we would cover the training part. The next one, the circuit court, $57,000 increase. This is to offset costs that we have to pay to Roscommon County to help with the court. The budgeted number that was included was determined by the circuit court to be less than what was needed. How that was missed is that all we had to go on when that budget was being put together was our year-to-date expenditures from prior years, and we had not been billed consistently in the prior year. It actually missed a quarter on the payment. This is making that making up that difference. I did get a commitment from the circuit court administrator to be more active when we're doing these budgets. She doesn't have direct access to our BSNA system because she's actually based out of Roscommon. So knowing this, there's a workaround that we can use to get them an Excel spreadsheet so that we get a good proposal in from the circuit court this year, and we're not missing such a large number. Corrections, there's a $30,000 adjustment. Most of that has to do with a couple of things. One of them is readjusting all the pay. So we've had some people with some increases that have happened that weren't in the original budget, but the big part of this is reconciling where everybody is with their health insurance. Now, this is a big department, so a lot of subscribers to our health insurance in there. I work off from the numbers that we have prior to October 1 when we're putting the budget together to determine who's taking what plan with health insurance. But our personnel are fluid. We have people who resign and new people are hired in. And at January 1 of each year, we have something called re-enrollment. So if somebody's had a change of heart in terms of what plan they want, they can through open enrollment change the plan. The big thing though that we get is new hires that come in that maybe a new hire with a family that is replacing a former employee who maybe had been a one-person subscriber. So that it makes for a higher charge on health insurance. And so that's part of what you're seeing here. Now, there are some other expenses, want to get into the details that there needed to be some adjustment as well. But for a department that big, that's not an unusual shift to watch happen. And I would also point out that the corrections revenue being generated is also projected to be about $80,000 more than what we had originally budgeted as well. So even with this change, it's definitely offset by increased revenue. Another large one, the prosecuting attorney, I want to come back to in a minute. This one has to do with retirement, and there is trouble on the horizon that I want to talk about when we get through this bit of detailed discussion. Road Patrol grant, that budget, again, big portion of that is they had the wrong health insurance plan that was budgeted, and it was about a $15,000 swing by itself. There are some other issues in there. One of them had to deal with the rate of pay of the individual that had to be adjusted. There are some other elements to this that I have discussed with the sheriff concerning overtime and some other expenses that were not planned that were in there, but I'm convinced now the sheriff is aware and that it's all being monitored. The sheriff's budget, again, about $20,000 of that had to do again with the health insurance. We have an additional person actually being insured in the sheriff's office fund than I had calculated. And that's, I believe it's identify the individual. One of the command officers wasn't listed in that department, but that's where the insurance was going to. So it's just had to make that up. So the overall, the expenses up $280,000, revenues up only $217. So as you can see, that's putting the squeeze on the surplus. The rest of what you see in this resolution is short of putting the line item amendments for each of these departments in the resolution itself and having a 48-page resolution. This just simply attempts to describe where the increases and decreases were on 4 different categories. Personnel expenses, you'll see is the highest probably in every department that we have. We also have controllable expenses, things like office supplies, training, travel are controllable. Many departments have non-controllable expenses. A lot of those are very small. If there's a bank charge, $20 or whatever, you can't control what the bank is going to charge. Another one is things like copier leases that are determined by Xerox and not by the department. So those are listed as non-controllable. And then we have capital outlay. So what you see in this level of detail is those 4 categories and where those adjustments occurred in each of these activities. Again, if you want to see the exact line item, that's provided for you in the documents. I just don't include that in the resolution itself. And then for the non-general fund, mainly your special funds or your dedicated funds, are all listed using that same formula. So it's still a 6-page resolution with all of that. Now back to the one with the prosecutor. This is sort of like the first shot over the bow. We are at the business end of the defined benefit retirement plan as we sit here today. Back in 2007, the county, I think very wisely, ended defined benefit retirement program for all new hires. So anybody coming in after 2007, their retirement program is something with a defined contribution. The difference is this: the defined benefit plan had an employee cost component to it, an employer cost component to it. That all went to MERS, the carrier, who invested that money, and then they have an expected rate of return on that investment, and that's expected to fund these employees for their retirement for the duration of their retirement period. The unknown in all of this is as markets fluctuate, as employees are hired and leave employment, those numbers tend to go up and down. It's to the point that we are now required to report each year in our audit, roughly from about 2007 forward, is something called an unfunded liability. So what happens is at MERS, the actuaries get together, they look at the rate of return that they see on their investments, they projected roughly a 7% rate of return on those investments each year. If that rate of return comes in higher, great. Our unfunded liability then goes down. Last couple of years, that rate of return of 7% was not met. In fact, last year, the standard rule was if you lost 15%, you were doing good. While that rate of return expected a 7% return, it took a 15% loss. Guess who gets to pay for that? That ends up being the employer or the employee contribution. But to let you know where we are with the employee contribution, remember this was cut off in 2007 for all of our new employees. We still have today 22 employees who are active, who are on the defined benefit plan. So these are employees who were hired before 2007. They are paying through payroll deduction a certain amount, a certain percentage into MERS each year. And the county is picking up a portion of that. And then, of course, the rate of return picks up the rest. We know we're going to have 2 employees in this group retire this year. So when they retire, there's no longer a payroll deduction that goes to MERS. The employer ends up being responsible for that full amount. Of the 22 active employees, 19 are eligible to retire in the next 2 years. We have 3 employees who will be here for at least 5 more years before they're eligible to retire. That doesn't mean they will retire, but they've met the criteria, the number of years of service and age, they can retire with that full benefit. Bottom line is, when those employees retire, the county ends up being responsible for the entire amount. We reported in our audit this year that our unfunded liability, this is the liability that's projected by the actuaries based on mortality rates and rates of return. That unfunded liability as of September 30th of last year sat at 7.2 million. So that's over the life of these employees. So you might expect that by the time the final employee in that group retires, you might have 20 or 30 years of payout in retirement going to that employee. So with all that, that means that our costs, our out-of-pocket costs are going to be beyond what we budgeted this year. There's no question. And we'll deal with that likely in the third and fourth quarters. But in the meantime, I would like direction from you, and this is getting a little astray from the budget adjustment, but I would like some direction from you to go ahead and explore an opportunity to bond that amount. Now, that doesn't excuse us from paying. We're still going to have to pay, but through bonding, we might be able to get that stretched out over a longer time period, lower the annual payment, but we know what that payment is going to be each year, and we can insert it into the budget. Not totally that easy. I still have to watch for these rates of return in particular, and we still might be on the hook for some more money if the rate of return doesn't meet 7%. But frankly, MERS has been pretty darn good at meeting that over most years. In fact, if you spread it out and you look at like a 20-year average, they probably beat that most years. So it's still, though, an obligation that we'll have. But at least for the bulk of the 7.2 million, it's stretched over a known period of time, and we know what our payment would be each year going forward. And we wouldn't be here having to discuss this maybe in 2 and 3 years as these employees begin to retire. So for now, in this budget adjustment, the allocation for the prosecutor's office, and again, this is mostly for employees who are no longer here, is already exceeded its budget for that line. So you have that adjustment, roughly 20,000 in the prosecutor's budget. There's a couple of others that are like that. The others are still within budget, but they are going to blow past their budget this year. I have no doubt that that's going to happen. So again, when we get to the third and fourth quarter, we get a better idea of exactly where that's going to fall. I'll bring you some adjustments at that time to address it. So that's the big trouble on the horizon, and just be aware it's something that we're going to need to address. In the meantime, back to present day in this resolution. If you have any questions on any of those adjustments, I will do my best to answer.
Is there anything else other than bonding? Is there any other option?
Lottery ticket, maybe. I mean, there really aren't. And I'm
Nice.
sure Treasury would frown on our purchasing a subscription to the lotto, but there really isn't, other than just simply paying. And this is like a first tier obligation. This is an obligation that not only was made to those retirees, but also to MERS. I mean, they depend on our continued participation at full rate. And this is why, too, several years ago, we began a requirement of reporting what that unfunded liability is in our audits, so that it's front and center. Everybody knows what it is. There are instances of counties, and you recall that we were funded at about 79%, which is pretty darn good on the overall scale. But we have some counties, but a lot of other municipalities that are funded well below 50%. And the state's actually offering grants to help get their unfunded liability up to something that's a little bit more reasonable. We fortunately have managed that well enough that we're not in a category where we'd be eligible for one of those grants. But those are communities that are in deep trouble, whose pension plans are not funded. And how they were able to go year after year and not pay that full obligation, I'm not quite sure. But that's really, like I said, a first tier obligation. That's right there with paying your employees. That's a commitment that's been made. It's not one that we can just skip. So to answer your question, no real good other option.
Comments, Commissioner Scott?
The road commission is getting like a $280,000 grant to bring their unfunded balance up. Nobody's at 100%.
We don't qualify.
There are a couple that are.
Maybe a couple, but
well, I'll leave my opinions to myself as to why that is, but I would also argue, and this is strictly academic, it's not going to go anywhere, but I believe that when you're funded at roughly 80%, you're probably, that's about as good as you can really expect. You don't know. I mean, nobody knows, as far as those mortality rates, we have an idea of how long people live after retirement, but not everybody does. And so that's, going to constantly be a fluid number. The rate of return, I have great respect for the record that MERS has attained over the years, and they have really done a good job with that. But we can, having said that, I mean, I think they're going to probably meet or exceed that rate of return most years. So would we ever need to be 100% funded? I don't think we would. And 100% is going to change year to year on what that number is. So, yeah, a nice lofty goal, but I think if you hit 80%, you're doing pretty good.
Any other questions on the second quarter budget adjustments? Commissioner Simmons?
The 7.2 million, this bond, would that cover everybody that's retired now?
It would, everybody who is in that defined benefit plan, and the intent is to, play this through. The bond is approved, we receive the 7.2 million, that's immediately turned over to MERS. And as far as MERS is concerned, we're fully funded on that day. Now, again, we'll have the fluctuations with rates of return and so on. But for those employees, there's really no better security they can have to know that their funds are going to be there in retirement.
What about the
Yes,
people that haven't retired yet? Does it cover them too?
it would. If they're in the
Okay.
defined benefit plan, it would cover them too.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Back to the original question, pardon me,
I just like to make a comment.
to that or to the second quarter budget adjustments?
Back to this.
Go ahead.
What we're talking about. These are critical talks. And I appreciate the fact that Tim brought this to us. And I think we need to fully support you looking into these bonding options.
We had a one-on-one, Brenda and I had a one-on-one, Commissioner Simmons and I, conversation with Tim last week, and that was one of the main topics. Absolutely, it's killing us. I mean, it's hard to prepare when you don't know
But if you do
what
this,
the amount's gonna be.
our payment would be the same all the time.
It would be the same over whatever the life
Correct.
is of the bond.
Right.
Correct. So at least permission, I think we're all on, and then we'll go back to the second quarter budget adjustments to at least further investigate that. Tim, that's what you were looking for on that, correct? Okay, any comments on the second quarter budget adjustments, Commissioner Scott?
No, I mean, but the only thing I don't have personally, but this is where we'll pass some adjustments. And then in a month from now, this isn't him moving the money anywhere he wants to go, okay? Pay attention, take a look at these adjustments throughout this next week before we approve them next week. This is a fluid budget. All budgets are fluid budgets. Some people will tell you, no, you give me my budget, I get my budget all year and you can't touch it. No. This is our job. Fluid budget. It takes adjustments all through the year. Money comes in, money goes out. But pay attention to them, because this is the argument about this car. We set aside in that first quarter of budget adjustment in commissary, a place for a vehicle. It wasn't a resolution on its own. It was in the budget adjustment. That's all I'm saying. Commissioners, just take a look at it. Just like Charlie says, this is really important business. This is what we do.
Commissioner Wiltie? Commissioner Simmons? Commissioner Mayhew? I didn't see, looking at these, and I appreciate all this information as well, looking at all these individually that's on our iPads. There was some that I didn't see any overtime under as a line. And I'll come in and talk to you specifically, Tim, so.
They're in there. I'll have to fish one out for you.
I did see some, but I didn't see them all. I will look at that and I'll get to you individually. Item M, administrator contract.
No, we were gonna talk to our attorney.
Okay, you want that in the closed session?
Yeah,
So we
that-
need to remove that. Okay, item N, public alerting grant. Mr. Bowers, come on up. Nice to see you. Been a little bit.
Morning,
Are you doing well?
I'm doing very well.
Good.
So my new me and myself are learning to
Adjust.
cooperate with each other. So we're only a few weeks into it. It's
Doing well.
Thank you. So back in May of 2021, we purchased a mass alerting, public alerting program through RAVE and IPAWS. Gave us the ability to communicate during emergencies and disasters with all of our public. The contract with Ray was a 5-year contract. And the grant that we bought the contract with was a 2-year grant. So it was stipulated at that time that the counties, because we entered into a 5-county agreement, that each of the 5 counties would possibly have to pay out of their own pockets for years 3, 4, and 5. On May 1st, I was able to secure a grant for the 23-24 year to pay for the entire 5 counties for this. So we don't have to pay for the grant for year 3. I'll continue to try to get another grant next year for year 4. It does look pretty good. So my request is that Ogemaw County continue to fiduciary this agreement as we did in 2021 and go ahead and submit payment to Rave of $14,250.37 for May of 2023 to May of 2024. This is a 100% reimbursed grant, and you will expect to receive your reimbursement in 90 to 120 days after purchase.
All right, it's 100% covered. I don't see a problem with this.
Not at all.
Commissioner Simmons?
No, so that means we pay first and they reimburse us.
Correct. All of my Homeland Security grants work that way. 95% of them are 100% reimbursed.
Perfect. Commissioner Scott?
No, good job. Good job getting.
Oh, this was also money that I was able to secure that was not part of our regular allotment. This was an additional $14,000 from the 2021 grant fund that was not part of our county's allotment of the 14 counties.
Extra credit then. Extra credit, kudos.
Extra credit.
Commissioner Wiltie?
Fully support it. You guys have heard me say, we're extremely blessed to have Mike do what he does for us in our county. So thank you, Mike.
Commissioner Mayhew?
Thank you.
You'll put it on for resolution? Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you all very much. You all have a wonderful day.
I don't think you too. I don't think I missed anything, but we have one more public comment. And then we're going into closed session. Any public comment in the room? Same rules apply. Yes, come on up, sir.
And I'm Dan Johnson. I just soon stand. I just have a couple comments. First, you're on the Parks and Recreation Committee. Obviously, you don't have to answer. So I'm gonna just go this way. They have volunteers to help clean up, and you mentioned it.
Mr.
And we'll
Madsen,
talk-
I apologize, but you do gotta talk to me. That's part of the rules. You could stand, but just talk to me. I know. Listen, go ahead, sir.
So I was very blessed to go down and work at the park, the RV park this weekend, cleaning it up with the volunteers. I didn't see very many people that are in this room. So when it comes to volunteers, they either do it or they don't. Reason volunteers usually don't is because they're not asked. So this whole project with the high banks, if you ask for help, you'll get it. You're only gonna get so many volunteers. But as the Boy Scouts just said, they'd be glad to come down and help. And there's others in the community. Hopefully, some of the business people that make the money that I talked about often will also do the same.
Correct.
Okay. And if this has been on the agenda for so long, my bad for not knowing it. We should probably already know what the liability against it is. I know you can't answer the question, but it should be out there somewhere.
I'm going to briefly say liability as well as properties that hasn't been maintained. So it's not just the cost. I mean, there's numerous things that go into the word liability. Cost as far as how much we're paying per year, absolutely. But then also the liability for grounds that have not been being maintained. I've been out there twice recently, walked it, looked at it, lots of trees down. There's lots of things that it's beautiful. I agree 100%. It's a beautiful piece of property. I participated in it my entire life, but it needs to be maintained.
Most certainly. So, but as we talk about that, the commissioners not knowing they owned it, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I've known it. I've got Onyx. It's been on there since Onyx has been had. I've had it. It's always been the counties. If somebody on this board didn't know they owned it, shame on them. That's all.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Come on up, ma'am.
Janice,
Go ahead.
two things. You can't do anything within 100 feet because it's a natural river. Down trees have to stay. Okay. When you do a committee, I'd like to be on that board and involved on it.
Thank you.
And anything else I can help with,
Thank you.
because I do use that as.
That is appreciated. Any other public comment? Any public comment on the phone? Can I have a motion to go into, there will not be any business discussed after closed session, correct? We have nothing on the agenda. Is there any possibility of these closed sessions as far as further business?
Well, we don't make motions usually.
Correct. So there will be no business after the closed session. So the public's aware. Okay, perfect.
So
I
I'll
need a
make a
motion.
motion to move into a closed session to consult with the county attorney regarding specific litigation in the matter of Karen Tracy versus Howard Camp. MCL 15.268E. And also move in. Also consideration of a written legal opinion with the attorney-client privilege. MCL 15.268H.
I'll support that. Can I get a roll call vote?
Jenny David,
Yes.
Roger Mayhew,
Yeah.
Charles Wiltie,
Yes.
Brenda Simmons,
Yes.
Craig Scott.
Yes.
We have a motion to go into closed session at 10:16. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Danny? I think I did.
Yes, yes, we can. Yep.
Have a good day, April.
Excuse yourself.
Yes.
You can't put trees around.
I don't. Sorry.
I did it all about, that was just mentioned,
Danny.
mentioned it, and then when she said that, I thought, oh, great.
So is anybody let Tom know? You let him know? Okay. Huh?
He's on. You on, Tom?
He is the Ogemaw County.
Yeah.
Call me.
I'll
answer that question once everybody's back in.
Okay,
Okay,
Go ahead.
make a motion to go into open session.
No, Matt's gonna explain.
he's gonna explain
To do
that.
next.
There's no problem with doing that, but you're not legally required to. The closed session rules are that you cannot take any action or vote in closed session. However, the AG has opined that a motion to come out of closed session is simply an administrative function. So that can be done in the closed session, or you can have a motion in open session. So there's no issue with you doing a motion to return to open, and functionally, because you had a motion in closed session, that's also fine. So it's
So we really only
your
need
prerogative.
one. Okay.
Motion to adjourn then.
Make a motion to it. I need a motion to adjourn. Yeah, Craig
To adjourn.
and Mr. Mayhew. All in favor? Yeah. Yes. I didn't hear you.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody else, thanks for attending the meeting.
Well, see.